Welcome back to the video series Sea Level Rise Flooding. I'm your host and guide, Paul Enns. This fifth episode covers 3 areas of focus. We'll explore in detail risks and adaptations. First, we explore what is specifically at risk and how adaptations are being installed through an interview with Eric Christensen for the City of Olympia. Second, we talk with Matt Kennelly of the LOTT Clean Water Alliance about the risks and adaptations for the Thurston County wastewater treatment plant.
My title is City of Olympia Water Resources Director. My responsibilities are to manage the 3 water utilities for the City of Olympia. For the City of Olympia, I've been involved in sea level rise planning for 10 years.
How long has the City of Olympia been involved in sea level rise and flooding planning?
Starting in the early 1990s, the city began planning for climate change and sea level rise.
What role do you play in that collaboration group?
I am the City of Olympia's staff liaison to the Olympia Sea Level Rise Collaborative.
Why is preparing for tidewater flooding important to the City of Olympia?
Preparing for tidewater flooding is important to the City of Olympia because the city is built on fill from dredge materials, approximately 400 acres of downtown Olympia.
But why now for the city?
As I mentioned earlier, the City of Olympia has been working on sea level rise and climate change since approximately 1990. Since that time, sea levels in the Puget Sound region have raised approximately 2.5 inches. The analysis we did with the recent sea level rise response plan indicate that with an additional 6 inches of sea level rise, we could flood up to 100 acres of the downtown area. So we need to keep an eye on sea level rise, and it's getting to the point where we need to start adapting in order to protect the portions of downtown.
Can you please explain the combined stormwater and wastewater system for the City of Olympia?
A portion of downtown Olympia is a combined sewer system. Somewhere less than half of downtown stormwater runoff flows to the LOTT Clean Water Alliance's Bud Inlet treatment plant, where it's treated and then discharged. The other approximately half of downtown runoff discharges directly to Bud Inlet or Capitol Lake. In some cases it's treated, and in some cases it's not. Most of downtown Olympia's stormwater and wastewater systems were constructed at least 80 years ago. In some cases, some of it's more than 100 years old, still the existing pipes. At the time, water was discharged directly to the bay without any treatment.
When will this present system be separated, if ever, into 2 separate, discrete systems?
At the present time, we feel that our emergency response planning is sufficient to protect the existing combined system. Eventually, we will start adapting by elevating our shorelines, which will create flood barriers to prevent marine waters and waters from Capitol Lake from overcoming the shoreline and getting into the combined system. The concern there is that particularly marine waters getting into the combined system could overwhelm the capacity of the LOTT Clean Water Alliance's Bud Inlet treatment plant. As we elevate the shorelines, we will then have to deal with how to get our stormwater out into the bay and out into the lake. At that point, we will probably have to construct, well, we know we will have to construct some pumping stations for stormwater. It's at that time that we will likely separate our stormwater and our wastewater into 2 waste streams. In terms of other structures, I think the Olympia Center on Columbia Street, which also houses the Senior Center, will be one of the first city structures that could succumb to sea level rise.
Phased adaptation means things that are happening. What about some of the imminent projects that are happening within the city of Olympia?
Some of the imminent projects are smaller projects. We're in the process of relocating one of our sewer lift stations that is currently susceptible to high tides or king tides.
Temporary flood protection, some of the emergency adaptations that happen by the city?
The city plans for and practices emergency response for flooding in downtown at least annually.
How hopeful are you to see these plans and adaptations taking place?
I'm very confident that both technically and fiscally we can protect downtown for up to 6 feet of sea level rise. And that will take us through at least, we hope, the end of the century. Now, whether I'm able to do that in my current position or posterity does that, I'm confident that we're capable of doing so at a modest price compared to the value of the assets in downtown Olympia.
Welcome. Please tell us who you are.
My name is Matt Kennelly. I'm the Assistant Executive Director of LOTT Clean Water Alliance.
And what is the LOTT Clean Water Alliance?
LOTT stands for Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Thurston County. We provide wastewater management services to the area of the north urban area of Thurston County. Approximately 116,000 residents are served by the LOTT Clean Water Alliance.
How about explaining the combined wastewater and stormwater system?
The difficulty now that Olympia has combined systems, stormwater and sewer systems, is that it's very expensive to separate those systems now because that stormwater needs to go somewhere and it needs to get treated. Fortunately, the Butt Inlet Treatment Plant is built to handle those stormwater flows. So this Butt Inlet Treatment Plant was built in 1952 and connected to the combined system.
So there are several things that can overwhelm the system coming in. How about talking about those?
Two primary ways that the system at Butt Inlet Treatment Plant can be overwhelmed are flooding of the streets and flooding from the offshore water coming into the plant. So even with 6 inches of sea level rise, approximately 150 catch basins that are combined sewer and stormwater would get flooded. As the floodwaters enter the treatment plant, at some point, our treatment plant can't pump that water anymore, and would there be backing up of sewage in downtown Olympia, or there would be flooding inside the treatment plant. A second way that the treatment plant could be overwhelmed would be flooding over the shoreline, because the treatment plant is in a low-lying area, and so if we get high floodwaters, we could flood our underground facilities and flood out our pumps and our machinery, and that would affect our ability to treat wastewater. When water comes into the treatment plant, it goes into storage areas, and those are called equalization basins. We have a little over 2 million gallons of storage that helps buffer out high flows coming into the plant. And then we have very large influent pumps that would pump the water to the next steps of the treatment process. Those influent pumps have to be set at a low elevation because all of the flows from the community come in downtown to the plant, so they flow downhill. So those pumps have to be set below the ground surface. They're approximately 20 feet below the ground surface. The facilities that are vulnerable, however, are our headworks. Those very deep influent pumps that I mentioned previously have to be deep in order to pump the water out to boost the water up to the next part of the treatment process. They're about 20 feet below the ground surface, so they could get flooded should there be overland flooding. And then our utilidor, which is a large kind of hallway underneath the ground that carries a lot of our main process piping, that could get flooded. Fortunately, many of the facilities, though, are above ground at the Butt Inlet Treatment Plant. Any new facility being installed, designed and installed, is above the minimum flood elevation.
The pumps are running off of power.
Should floodwaters get into the Puget Sound Energy substation and somehow knock power out to that facility, the Butt Inlet Treatment Plant would not have any power. We would rely on our emergency generation equipment. So we have backup systems in place to run on diesel to provide power to essential pumping equipment. We have the ability to move water through the plant should that happen.
Why is adaptation, or are these fixes, why are they important to LOTT?
Adaptation is very important to LOTT because our Butt Inlet Treatment Plant is in downtown Olympia at a low elevation and prone to flooding. So we must adapt in order to keep wastewater treatment happening in our community. A good example of that is our service entrance switchgear. That's the electrical feed into the plant that goes through a main switchgear system. That platform that the switchgear sits on was raised up 1.5 feet, and to be able to adapt to the situation. We cross-checked our current project, our biological process improvements project, when we're building a new building to make sure that that is above minimum flood elevations, as well as a new substation that we're building. So any new system built will be above flood elevations.
We've been talking about some planned adaptations or fixes to what's happening here. Starting with the near term, what would some of those be?
In the near term, our approach to sea level rise has been a lot of collaboration with the City of Olympia, the Port of Olympia, and the state. So a couple things that are happening in the near term. We're coordinating with the City of Olympia and the Department of Enterprise Services for winter flooding. So inundation of the combined sewer and stormwater systems to prevent that flooding from actually coming into the sewer in the first place, which would eventually make its way down to the treatment plant. So we're coordination on a variety of measures, whether or not they're mats that would cover up the catch basins for stormwater, whether or not that's diversion of flows or pumping provided by the City of Olympia. So that's one way that we're doing in the near term. So the midterm adaptations that we're looking at that we've uncovered with our master planning effort is to increase our pumping capacity and our ability to pump water through the plant. We're looking at definitely on our new treatment facilities, being able to build those above minimum flood elevations. And then potentially looking at a wet weather treatment facility somewhere in the midterm, but potentially long-term approach as well. The collaboration with the Port of Olympia and the City of Olympia would be more of a perimeter protection of either the shoreline or the Butt Inlet Treatment Plant to prevent the overland flooding from rising sea levels from inundating the plant.
Because wishing that it won't happen isn't going to keep it from happening.
Wishing that it won't happen is not an option. So planning, including the master planning that we're doing, including the sea level rise planning, it's just part of our DNA. This is what we do here at LOTT.